Welcome to Marketing State of Mind, the podcast where clarity meets visibility. I'm Lynn Colbot, strategist and systems whisperer, here to unpack the mindset behind your marketing moves. Whether you're launching, scaling, or starting over, let's find the choices that actually feel like you. Welcome back to A Marketing State of Mind, and today I'm joined by Daniel Alphen, a strategist, author, and someone who knows firsthand what it takes to build a business with clarity and courage. From the lessons of self-publishing his book to the moment he realized firing a client could actually grow his revenue, to the art of making referrals work without the awkwardness, Daniel has lived the marketing mindset shifts we talk about here. So let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Daniel.
Lynn, what an amazing intro. I'm done. This is the summit of my existence.
Oh, well, then that's a pretty good summary then, I guess. You totally threw me off with that.
Thank you very much for having me on the marketing state of mind, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you.
Well, then let's, as I said, dive in because when I was researching a little bit about you, there were so many different aspects. So I gave the summary. Now you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what brought you to where you are now.
With pleasure. My thread is around training. I consider myself a trainer. And I happened to train about LinkedIn because I bumped into LinkedIn early in 2004 and I made all the mistakes. And even if you were a slow learner in 20 plus years, you learn a couple of things. Um, and usually technologies and people, not in that order, is the main challenge that we face. We often think that technology is the problem or the solution, but it's our adoption or our objections, the human ones that make or break our success as entrepreneurs or business owners or consultants.
I love that. I love that. And I love that you talk about being on LinkedIn since 2004 because I started on Facebook probably around that time, and it really gives you a different perspective on social media. When if you've been on it so long, you see these trends, you see what works, and you also see people go kind of all in on a way of doing things and then the algorithm changing. And all of a sudden, something they were doing to generate leads that was a surefire thing doesn't work anymore. And I always found that very interesting when kind of putting together marketing plans in LinkedIn. And we had talked just a little bit before the show started. LinkedIn is one of my weaker strategies. And I own that 100% because I do find it a challenge to get in the right mindset to connect with people. And I know that you have courses that you offer on LinkedIn, and where you help people kind of create their plan and their strategy. So not to kind of dive into what your course specifically is, but how do you help people build that community and avoid duct taping pieces together and being super generic on LinkedIn? You know, those profiles you just pass by, you're like, I'm never going to read that. How do you help people stand out?
Wow, such an amazing question. So I'll mention two or three quick things. You mentioned the algorithm changes. Um, we link and make a decision about who we accept as connections. And this is our calls to make. And one of the best ways to actually leverage LinkedIn is by leaving the LinkedIn platform. LinkedIn will not tell you that, but if I wanted to get introduced to you, I look at your profile and I notice that you and I have two mutual connections, Tim Mellinson and Jeff Mendelson. If I look and say Tim who, then I'm in trouble. But Tim is a great podcaster, and Jeff is also a great podcaster. We've had a conversation, and what I could do is leave the LinkedIn platform, reach out to either of them, ask how they've been, and say, I noticed you were connected with Lynn from this marketing state of mind. Do you know her well enough to make an introduction? I'd love that.
Mm.
Even if the algorithm changes, nothing will change this as long as networking is more important than the algorithm. Networking stays, whether we pivot, we offer new services, we become someone else. Network is the key to our future success.
Hmm. I will say the times when I dive into personally connecting with people on LinkedIn, I am always surprised that how ready and receptive people are. Like it if I reach out to them with something specific versus just kind of generically posting stuff. So I that's interesting, going straight for the referral. Huh. And I liked where you talked about it. You just kind of hinted a little bit about making sure that those connections were specific connections, like I guess validating those connections. And you also talk about in a little bit on your website, in your bio, about firing clients. And I know this seems like a big leap, but I'll get there by saying I always tell my clients that you need to validate your clients, and you need to make sure that not just do you want to work with them, but are they ready to work with you? So it kind of sounds like that's what you're saying. Am I in line with that?
100%. And we can discover whether we're aligned in a bad way, in a bad timing, or in the best way before we start investing our time and efforts into working together.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. So um how does this, like, how do you help then, or is it more of a philosophy? You can kind of answer that. Clients with kind of setting up those boundaries and understanding this client's not for me and this client is for me. Like, how do you help them make those decisions or put value on clients? Because somebody flies in with a checkbook, it's really hard to say no.
It is until you realize that that comes with a price you're not willing to pay.
Okay.
And sometimes what you could do is build a better process before starting working with that person. And what you mentioned is very important. Sometimes we'd like to work with them, but they're not ready.
Mm.
And if you identify that, then if you're interested in referrals and in happy clients, you will not start working with that person. Sometimes you'll suggest, I think you need to work with A, B, and C to get your basics done, and then we could help you. Or that I'm not sure I'm a good fit because what I hear from you is A, B, and C, and that's not my kind of service. I'm not sure it would be a good fit. Funny thing is sometimes only when people hear that they start chasing you. Like it wasn't the intention at all, but the moment you tell them we're not working together, then they try to go out of the way and say, yes, I'd like to. When you work with someone who's not ready, there's less chance of us getting referrals. You'll work harder. The results will not be perceived as stellar as you'd like. And prevention is usually better than cure. So think about it. That's it.
That's a good way to kind of end that. Prevention's better than cure. So you have specific experience. So you're not just preaching this. This is something you've done. You've had to fire a client, and maybe you could tell us a bit about that and how it affected maybe your revenue and your confidence. Now, you alluded to it a little bit, but maybe being more specific about that client, letting them go, and how it really helped you move forward.
With pleasure. It was accidental, of course, but it was a great lesson. At one point, I had three significant clients simultaneously, and as consultants, we're sometimes moving from feast to famine. And it was the first time I had to juggle with so many significant clients, and initially I was very happy about it until I noticed that I didn't sleep well because one of them kept charging and asking for additional things and changing their mind three times a
Mm.
day. And I realized that I was ready to write that off and to leave money on the table because sleep was more important to me than anything else. And frankly, the referral aspect was also something that was important. The funny thing, Lynn, is that after we stopped working together, my revenues increased because I 90% of the business I got from that point on was based on referrals. And referrals, they tend to work with you better. They know they come pre-sold. They're less price sensitive. They usually, if someone who knows you say, Lynn, I think you should work with Jane, then they envision Jane and yourself and they see a potential fit. And that takes away the risk, 90% of the risk, and it would it ended up having a better financial outcome. But initially, the state of mind or the peace of mind was the initial trigger for stop working at all costs.
I like that. I like that. And it's something that as I mentioned, I try to tell people taking something toxic and negative out leaves that space for something positive. Or, like you said before, the prevention, keeping those clients out of your circle leaves that space to do something more positive with better clients that align better. So I love that story because it's just more proof that as service providers, we do have a choice. Although sometimes we don't feel so much that we do, there is an element of choice for who we work with. So I do love that. And you were talking about referrals, and yes, I agree. Referrals are so important. They do have that pre-sold quality. And you talked a little bit about the double opt-in referral. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit about the double opt-in referral, and maybe you alluded to it already and why it matters so much.
With pleasure. So imagine after being on the marketing state of mind, we would have a chat and I would ask you, Lynn, who would be a good guest for the show? And if you'd like to be a guest on other people's show, what sort of shows would you like to be on? And you would give me two or three criteria for guests and maybe one type of say any marketing podcast that relates to AI could be an interest podcast for you. So initially, our thoughts are, yes, I know that person. Mike Montague is the right host for you. So I'm shooting both of you an email. It's fast, but it's less efficient because Mike wasn't expecting this. And
Okay.
Mike hasn't given me the permission to make that introduction.
Mm, okay.
So what I would do now is, first of all, check with you. So I would send you details about his podcast. And only if you okay, then I will reach out to Mike. And if Mike says, yes, please make the introduction, then I will shoot a brief email. It takes a bit
Mm,
more time, but it strengthens our relationship with both sides. And we don't want to be the people who made a disastrous introduction. And sometimes, it happens. And this reduces the risk of referring someone who's unprofessional or doesn't show up or comes with all sorts of funny tricks. So a double opt-in is basically asking you and the other party And if both of you say yes, then introduction will take place, and maybe 2 weeks later, you will check with both whether they're happy and whether they spoke. And I found that those kind of introduction tended to be more successful.
Hmm.
Rather than shooting 5 quick intros, two meaningful intros were better for both parties and for ourselves.
Okay. Okay. I mean, it makes sense. I guess since we're all so pressed for time, it is leaning back into being thoughtful about what you're doing and respectful of other people's time. So I may be pressed for time, but respect your time and the other person I'm trying to connect you with, and not just dump it on you and go, here, deal with it, which, I may or may not do. But yeah, again, to think about it more. So then you had also talked about, and which leans just a little bit off of this, about LinkedIn being great for introverts. So, most of the things in the business community around here are, let's go to this social, let's connect out here at this event. Here's a Chamber of Commerce event, which being an introvert, it can be like, that's a lot of peopling. That's a lot of conversations and small talk. So you position that LinkedIn is great for introverts. So can you maybe expand on that a little bit?
With pleasure. My belief is that we have an existing personality before logging into LinkedIn. I know what I said was nothing special, but we often find people who think that they need to behave in a certain way because of the platform.
Mm.
So I'm sorry, the platform is here to serve us, and we're not here to serve the platform. Which means that if you're happy being an extrovert, then be an extrovert on LinkedIn, and that will work for you. If you're an introvert and you'd like to do something else, it would work for you. The worst possible thing would be to try and behave in a way that's not natural for you, because it would be awkward. People who know you look at this and say, what was she thinking? This is not the words she would use. That's not the style that person would say. And when there's a gap, it doesn't serve us well. Um,
Yeah. What that, what, that 100% makes sense. And I kind of talk about it a little bit too, where looking at the scope of your business and who you are. If your website kind of says is very corporate and clean and jargon filled, and your Instagram is bubbly and full of kittens, and your LinkedIn is just some weird hybrid, then there's a trust issue. And I think that's kind of where you were diving in, so that if somebody wants to work with me and they see these three identities, well, which one is me? Which one am I? Who am I going to show up with? A cat and a corporate document and some kind of like goofy hat? They don't know. So it's keeping that thread of who you are, and being true to yourself on LinkedIn. And that is tough because there's a lot of extroverts on LinkedIn, and seeing all the amazing things they're doing, it's like, oh gosh, I got to get out of the house more. And then it's like, no, I'm not doing that. So
and I
if
mean, yeah,
pardon me, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Well, if someone is stuck in a marketing loop that isn't working, so they're maybe stuck in trying to position themselves on LinkedIn, trying to get their message out there, trying to figure out if their clients are right for them, what is kind of your overarching piece of advice that can help them shift into a better mindset?
Excellent. So I'd like to mention an earlier episode of the Marketing State of Mind. And that's a solo episode entitled Why Your Audience Isn't Hearing What You're Saying. And I'll just transfer it to LinkedIn for a sec. And many entrepreneurs know so much about their field. You use the word jargon, so they would use specific terms and say, this is what I offer. Simplest test, sit with someone and ask them, when you see this, ask them to look you up on LinkedIn and say, can you walk me through what you would think when you read this? And then whenever they say, I'm not sure what you mean by this, do you mean A or B? Lynn, we don't answer them. We're
Okay.
here for the questions. So they say, that's amazing. What do you think? And you basically only ask follow-up questions and don't provide any information. And if people misunderstand what we had in mind, then we thank them, we go back to the drawing board, and we simplify things. It could be that the jargon could be buried somewhere like at the bottom part of your profile just for the sake of the algorithm and the search,
Mm-hmm.
but your window should show things that are clear, and clarity is also something that you stress. If you see a window with 5 different items and you can't see the connections, then you're likely to move away. And if you see that this is the entry, this is the service,
Mm-hmm.
you disqualify yourself if you're not interested, and you're eager to learn more about it if this is what you'd like to learn.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. I think this is something I'm going to go back and replay and listen and take notes. But those are the good ones, right? And that's why I enjoy talking to people. I want people that know things differently or make me think different, and that's why I'm really appreciating having you here today. You're making me think of things a little differently, and I think after this I'm going to go on LinkedIn and make a few changes. So, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing these lessons and stories with us. We didn't talk too much about your book publishing, but where we got into LinkedIn and boundaries and how as a service provider to kind of center yourself, and you touched a little bit about LinkedIn, but you have much more information that you offer personally. And this is really a reminder that marketing mindset is about clarity and courage and not about shortcuts. That's kind of what I liked. You're like, take the time to do it. So to learn more about Daniel, you can head to danielalfam.com. And if you're enjoying A Marketing State of Mind, of course, subscribe and share. But I want to know, is the website the best way for people to reach you, or what do you have happening right now?
The website is the best place to learn more, to read articles, to book a one-on-one. And I hope that my next week is as fruitful as this, with conversation as interesting as this one.
Woohoo! You know what? I actually wish the same thing. So
Thank you
thank
very much,
you
Lee.
again, and you have an amazing week.
You too. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you for tuning in to Marketing State of Mind. If this sparks something, hit subscribe and share it with someone navigating visibility too. Want to work together or see how I help vision-driven brands get clear and seen? Head to cyberprarmy.com or connect with me on LinkedIn, Lynn Kolpa. Until next time, sit in the clarity and remember, visibility isn't about shouting. It's about saying the right thing in the right state of mind.